How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. All right, Kelly, I'm actually really interested to hear from you and like what your take is, what your stuff is, and I want to hear your things. I'm really looking forward to just hearing like, who are you? What do you do? And how can you help more people? Because I have a feeling that you're one of those people who help people.
Well, thank you. No, I'm excited to be here. So my name is Kelly Oberle, and so I had a corporate career for years, and when I got out of college, I was an athlete in college. I got out and went right into corporate to earn money and chase the corporate dream, and found out that it was not really what I wanted. I was in it for a long time, so I probably worked about 15, 18 years in corporate, doing technology, marketing, running sales and marketing teams, and launching products. And started to really feel like I was getting burnt out, had a family, was being pulled in a lot of directions. So I left and left corporate, did some high school softball coaching, believe it or not, and marketing consulting. And everything was fine. What ended up going back into corporate, got a good opportunity to manage some teams and do some leadership development. So I was doing that and got my master's and was super unhappy. That was probably the best way to put it. Was my kids were getting a little older and I was, juggling. So I decided right before the pandemic, I didn't know the pandemic was coming, or I would have made some different decisions like everyone else. But end of 2019, decided I was going to leave and I was going to take a couple months off to spend some time, with my kids and restart a corporate business around emotional intelligence, leadership development, resilience. And so that was the plan. Pandemic hit. I had done a lot of my own work, like on trying to manage my own stress and anxiety. Had really struggled in corporate with like getting sick, not being overwhelmed, trying to learn how to self-regulate and, not lose my temper and things like that. And so I'd taken a lot of classes and programs, did a lot of breath work, things like that. So I was trying to figure out how to incorporate those into my coaching and consulting business. And what happened is I started working, pandemic hit. So all of a sudden, resilience, stress management, mindfulness, all of those things became something that I felt I could really help other people with. And I was used to managing remote teams. So that kind of corporate feel of, hey, how do we get people to acknowledge what they're going through and also still be productive? And so that's kind of how I built the business. And I don't know if I'm giving you too much detail or not, but along the way, so I started doing stress management and resilience programs for organizations, especially because they had a lot of remote work. So we did them via Zoom and ended up, I had done a program and there was an athletic director in it because I was doing it for a junior college. And the athletic director, pulled me aside after and said, this would be a great program to use with some of our athletic teams. And you've got, an athletic background. And I still, I'm pretty involved in athletics. I've coached my kids and I've also still play a little bit. And so I ended up going out and doing a program for a women's basketball team. And so now I really, one, it's part of my passion because I know what it's like to be a student athlete. The pressure's there, and now they're even more than I could even imagine with social media and NIL, and there's just a lot going on. So for me, it's I've tried to take both my passions, so my corporate background and my athletic background, and serve kind of two audiences, but around the same thing is that I'm part of a team. I have a role to play and I need to learn how to feel like find my passion and feel good about it and what are some tools and techniques I can do to get up every morning and kind of take on the day. So,
yeah, I like it. One thing I like to do, I'm just going to give you one piece. Can I take all of these pieces? So you said, am I saying too much? Am I saying not enough? It's one of these things where what I do is when I'm listening, I also like to try to see what type of warrior are you, and so at least starting off with what I call the Fantastic Four. Are you heart side, mind side, body side, or spirit side? Like you got these different types of well, what's your proficiency? Where's your thing? And so far you're talking out of my language. What are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? How are you going to do the tactics? What are the training? This warrior side, that's body side. What are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? Do you see the setup? Are you going to manage stress? Are you going to work through anger? Are you going to work through anxiety? This is all warriors. This is body side. I'm like, yeah, Kelly, speaking my language. This is my mastery. Let's go. I really enjoy listening to the ways that you do it. And I kind of, if you could, I'd like to hear a little bit more of am I accurate in this is my assessment? Or are you like, no, I'm actually heart side warrior and I try to incorporate the body side. Do I have that correct, or would it be a different way?
Let me ask you, what do you, how do you kind of define heart versus body?
Love it. So, even the more simple version is emotional, spiritual, into the logical or mental, and then, the physical, the spiritual, emotional, physical, and, logical, or how do you think through it? So those would be the way I do it. So what's your way? You're one of those, you have to feel your way through this and trust your intuition and go through your feelings and go through that. That's a heart side. That's a heart side fighter. But if you're well, step 1, make sure you have these things in place. Step 2, do the breathing exercise. Step 3, make sure you have that thing there. Well, that's going to be mind and body side. This is going to be are you doing the work associated with the practice? This is understand which words. The action side is going to be the warrior part is yeah, you see the answer. Yeah, you know what it feels like, but did you do anything?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I would say that, my natural tendency is body side. I'm not the most organized person, but when I work with people, I'm can be pretty organized and pretty, problem solution focused. What I've noticed when I do have I do have an intuition and I try to follow my intuition. And what gets me in trouble is when I go against my intuition. So over the last few years, I've tried to tap into that more hard side. And that's part of some of the tools that, so I have went to a lot of classes that really talk about this is the things you need to do. And so I understand how to do that and I try to do that. But what I've found is that works for a short amount of time. It works for a percentage of people. But if you can give all that information and then you give ways to, a perfect example is I work with some organizations on communication and conflict resolution. And it's you can tell someone, hey, you need to calm down when you're speaking to someone. You don't like that person, but you have to work with them. So you just need to deal with it. And it's logically, I know that. But if I don't have tools of okay, when they come at me, maybe I need to say, hey, we need to schedule this 5 minutes later or an hour later. So I've tried to incorporate, I think if I understand what you're talking about, that's the heart side of it. It says, hey, we know the things we need to do, but we might not be ready to do them.
Well, that's boundaries. That still can be body side for sure. It can be well, I see I have to calm this down. What's the strategy? I know that healthy boundaries of hey, you're going to if I let you bulldoze me right now, I got to stop this. This is going to be unhealthy. So let's take 5 and then let's start back up again. That's healthy boundaries. We got no problem. Let's go ahead and this is how I'm going to handle it. That's still body side, and so, but when it comes into conflict resolution, there's so many strategies. That a couple of my favorite ones, because I'm with you. Let's hear this person's thing. And you're well, that works for the heart side, or that works for spirit side, or that works for, you'll hear a pastor say, this is the way that you should do it. Well, that's going to be different from corporate, so we got to go okay, what's the style that we're using here? And that works for one, but not the other. Have you tapped into, there's a few different things I've seen that are very effective, especially with very different personality types. One would be like enneagrams and work, or the other version would be NVC, like Marshall Rosenberg stuff, where you start getting into nonviolent communication, which is the step-by-step is observations, feelings, needs, requests. Let's create agreements that work together instead of like, well, calm down or else. We're like, well, that's a threat. So that's not good. Let's try different. So what system do you use?
So the nonviolent communication is one. I actually do some programs on it. The enneagrams and things like that, I understand, but I don't do very much work with. I lean a lot towards positive psychology. So things around like appreciative inquiry. So understanding what are the things that work well. So a lot of times in conflict, we focus on what's not working. And so there's no common ground. And that kind of goes a little along the lines of nonviolent communication. So that's kind of where I've played more in, which I think, again, as we're talking is I've never really thought about it, but it's probably more body side. So learning.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, even this morning when I was doing a training with my guys, people are like, damn, like I'm really struggling in this side. Like I have some guys who are spirit side, they're soul side, and like they're high faith and high energy in this area. But then I got guys who are heart side who are like, I'm not into that. I can't connect with it. So like each warrior type has its value and together we are stronger. But if I'm a barbarian and you're a mage, like those are two very different fighting styles. You can't put a battle axe in the mage's hands and a wand in the barbarian's hand. It doesn't work, and so it's like you have to fight with your style to be effective. And so, if you're like, hey, body side is correct, this is right, this is how it's done. And they're like, but I'm heart side. I can't use the weapon. Like, and this is where I've had to really level up my mastery to understand what type of warrior are you? Because if I'm giving out battle axes to everybody, this may not be your fighting style. And so this is where I've had to also have a lot of adjustment for like, you're high energy. Some people are empaths. Some people have they can read the energy of the room and can feel vibes. And I'm like, that's not my thing, but I have to adjust for it. Like there's a thing there, and so this is where I found, I can't just go warrior everybody. Everybody's got a different warrior type.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Warrior, thank you so much for being a part of the information that we have. And you're part of our story as we are a part of yours. It's very much an honor to be able to connect with each other. If you want to know more or you want to get started with working with me or working with our warriors so that you can begin your path to authenticity, strength, leadership, and accountability, this is the way. Together, we are way stronger. Now you get to choose. Do you go forward or keep doing what you've always done? If you stay where you're at, hey, click on some of the stuff and follow what it is. We got motivational stuff. We've got podcasts. We got more things. Just subscribe and do the stuff and we'll keep you updated. But if you want to start going in, start jumping into what our programs offer and start your journey and being the hero in your own story.
Do you think, because obviously there's like in any of the like classifications, there's kind of a dominant style. Do you think people have like these other, like, maybe I'm not a barbarian, but I could be. I'm sure it
can try. But this is one of the things where it's not like any one is better. They're all different. It's like rock, paper, scissors. Which one's the best? Well, they all have a strength and a weakness, and each, kind of exploits the other. So it's the same concept. If you're even for the men's side or the women's side, either way, I've got the same setups. If you've got your paladins, which is going to be your heavy armor, run in front, take the hits, do the hard, dirty work, stubborn, steadfast, and more earth-based. They're going to be more like rooted and grounded and strong and have endurance. And like they'll take the hits so others don't take the hits. Well, those guys are highly valuable. Front line, they protect. That's what they do. You've got your Spartans, and the Spartans are the loud ones. The burn it all. Fuck it. Let's go. Rah! Like these are the ones who are like, they create initiative. They're strong leaders. They make things happen. They're we're going to go. They're a lot more fireside. You've got your Jedis. My Jedis are going to be far more creative and ingenuity and and get outside of the box and find a new way and go kind of against the grain. And they're going to be the oddballs, but they're highly effective both in close quarters and far away. They can utilize the force, which doesn't make any damn sense, but they're far more, fluid in the way that they'll do things and more adaptable, flexible. But then you got your strategists, your generals. These are the guys who don't go running in. These are my computer guys. These are the guys who are like, what's the spreadsheet look like? What are the resources? How do we allocate? These are my engineers. These are my logic guys. These are my guys who are going to be less fluid, but can also find the ways to, like, the best way for everybody to coordinate. Paladins here, Spartans here, Jedis here. This is the best way, and so these are the guys who are also those types. Well, which one is best? Well, each is like a rock, paper, scissors thing. Each one fills a gap. It's kind of like a football team. Like, who's more important, the receiver or the quarterback? Well, remove either. Nobody. What's more important? The linemen, the defense, like the offense. What's more important? It's like all of them. So who's the weakest or who's the strongest? Together is the only strongest. Alone is the only weakest. And so this is where, like, no, each one is very valuable. Each one is needed to make it so the whole team works, because you'll have your paladins who are steadfast, strong, but they're also stubborn and stay in one place forever. So your Spartan friends are like, let's go. And you're like, okay. You got your guys who will get an analysis paralysis, and so you need the people who are like, or they'll go off and they'll take themselves so far off the path. You need your paladins to go like, hey, no, stay on the path, stay here. Like, don't stay grounded. Don't go too far out, stay balanced. You've got your strategists who can see all things, but they also don't often make a lot of moves. And so you need your body types to go, fucking do something. Let's go. And you're like, okay, let's do it. Pull the trigger. Like, everybody together fills a gap and fills each other in. This is why there is no competition for which is the dominant type, because each one is valuable. Each one is needed. But each one can't fight like the other one, because it starts taking away your strengths. It takes away your value and what you are in the team. And that's where, like, and this is just internal talk for us. There's so many different, programs out there that have the same concept of, like, where do you fit in? And it's a CIA. They do like the cheetah, the bear, the lion, and the fox. They do those things. Like, each one has their same classification, same concept, each valuable, but each different. So it's like, which one is the right one? Is it lions? It's like, well, lions don't get shit done without bears. Like, so who's better?
Yeah. And lions have to eat. So,
everybody's got to eat. And so we can't just have people sitting around waiting for food. Someone's got to hunt, and so I'm with you. It's just, which one is the most dominant? People think being Spartans is best, but Spartans is no different than rock. It still gets beaten by paper, and it doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah. And maybe I ask it, like, if so within me, I have a dominant one,
but
then I have secondary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Because I know, given the situation, I mean, that's kind of like, especially with athletics, we teach this a lot, is, that bench player that never gets in the game except at one time could be, the deal breaker. It's the same as Michael Jordan didn't win all of those Bulls championships. The 5th, 6th, 7th players did. And so, but there's a natural style that I have, but then do I have secondary?
Absolutely. We have all
kind
of
like
them.
Personality things.
Yeah. So as far as this goes, this is where the Fantastic Four. That's just keep it with you have a body, your physical side, your action based. And this may be like, this is where I am a doer. So this is where my strength comes and I achieve, I make things happen, but you also have the thinker, that part of you who will process and strategize. This may not be your number one or your go-to, but I am very capable when needed, especially when you flip into work mode, far more organized. And so when you switch into like mom mode, it'll be like, fucking, you guys just do whatever. But like, then work mode is like, it has to be on the Excel spreadsheet. Like, you can switch modes and still be proficient, but it's not your go-to. It's action. It's your go-to. But then you go into the spirit or soul side. This is a spacesuit that holds your soul. Like, this thing's going to die, but inside of here is who you really are. How much do you nurture and how much do you grow in that area? And this also goes into not only what you worship or your belief or your faith, but also the way you see the world and how you see yourself. This gets into like, who am I inside of here and my belief systems? That's how you operate everything. So at some point, this needs to be addressed, and then you got your heart side. And how do you feel? How do you connect? How do you do that? My strongest is obviously I started logic side. I went in philosophy, psychology. I'm like, we'll figure this out. Then I'm also action oriented. So this is the warrior's way. If you went through the 4, the warrior's way is going to be more body, mind. Now we address spirit, we address heart, but I'm not a pastor and I'm not a spirit or a heart coach. It's not my thing, but we need all of them. So you find those ones, but this side, this is going to be logic. This is going to be body. This side's needed. You need all 4, and so this is where I would say my strongest is going to be mind, then body. Then a couple of years ago, I unlocked spirit and figured that out. And even just a few months ago, I cracked through the barrier that I had for a repressed heart. Heart side was the most pushed down, especially, I don't know if you've done your enneagram, but if you seem very type 3, which is going to be achiever, action, go, get it done, finish the job. How do we do? Do we win? Like that's the achiever part. Well, achiever is technically heart side, but it's the most repressed heart side there is because the value comes from getting shit done, not from how I feel. In fact, feelings are getting in the way of getting stuff done. I need to achieve. I need to win. We need to finish. What's in the way? Remove the obstacle. Let's do it. Action, action, action. But it also really dampens connection. And like you said, you started finding that struggle between corporation win and family and love. And you're like, this is off balance.
Yeah. And I think you hit it right up in the head is I spent most of, and it's part of why I do the work I do now, is I spent most of my, my childhood through most of my career achieving things, whether it was, getting the grades I needed to get into the school I wanted to go to, working on my athletic skills to be able to play at the school I wanted to go to, all of those things. And I know that there was something like you hit those milestones and then it's the next thing. And so, I work a lot with not only organizations, but with athletic teams around, it is process over outcome. Like the outcome, if all you're looking for is that next outcome, that next win, it's going to be empty. It'll feel good for a minute, but then it's like, okay, now what? So if all of your value has been placed on, your achievements, eventually, like you run out of achievements. And I think, I think we had talked or I had said I had a part of a chapter book. I wrote a chapter and part of it was about I grew up with a father that was, pretty, hard to explain, but he was always that person who would be like, hey, there's always going to be someone better than you, so you've got to keep pushing and you've got to keep pushing. And in reality, that doesn't, I think to your point, there isn't someone better. I mean, you are who you are. And so a lot of that work, I think, is about not ever acknowledging that, the accolades or the awards or the achievements were what was fulfilling to me. But the things along the way can be very fulfilling. But if you lose focus of that and you're only looking at that outcome, it really takes things. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it absolutely does. And especially if there's someone always better than you, so keep working hard. It's going to instill that thing that, well, I'm never good enough. So I need to keep getting better, even though no matter how good you do, even if you were the best, there's a belief system in there that there's always someone better. And this means you're never good enough.
Yeah. And I think, and if, I mean, in reality, it's, there is only one winner. We'll joke with people if you're going into a tournament and your goal is to win, there's really only one winner. So you're 1 in 16 or 1 in 20. But is that really what it's all about? And it doesn't mean that you don't try your hardest and you don't, push hard and try to be better than what you did yesterday. But a lot of times we're focused on, hey, if I win, and you hear it a lot from people who, get to the top of their career or, get like a championship or something. And they're like, I thought it was going to be more. I got to feel more. And so that I think that point of learning how to enjoy the small wins along the way, so you can still be like, it still satisfies my competitive nature of enjoying small wins, but not having that be what my value is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's difficult too, because if your entire system for love is based on winning, well, then I'll never get love unless I'm winning. And so I have to be achieving or else I am not worth loving. And that curse is pretty nasty. It's pretty deep in there because there's a lot of repression you have to do to even sustain the system. I got to push it down. I got to push it down. I got to push it down. And so if I'm reading you right, you may be a hard side strength. Your intuition may be powerful, but you had to shut that shit up because I got shit to do today. And I can't listen to all that. This is not a part of the plan. I got to execute. And,
and it's such a survival. Like, I think like
coping mechanism.
Yeah. With a warrior mentality, like you're surviving. Like, when you're young, you don't know any better. And it is.
That's why you had to build it. I don't have control here, so I have to create a system that operates to get through this.
Yeah. So I think, and it's not something that, logically I could be like, yeah, I totally understand that. And I need to do this, but it's a lot. And, I used to joke, I would do hitting lessons, like teach kids how to hit softballs and things. But whenever I play, I would be a better hitter because I was focused on like doing things the right way. I feel like sometimes this work that I do when I'm talking to people about like being more focused on the joy of doing something as opposed to the outcome, that it helps me selfishly. It helps me like say, hey, it's okay to feel that joy. Like it's okay to not always, go for the win and be disappointed if you don't.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking at the psychology behind that, they've been doing a lot of studies on that, like results versus effort. They've been doing a lot of those studies. And even rule number 4 in the Warrior's Way is that we praise effort, not results. Like, I don't care if you won first place or you came in 8th. I am proud of you for finishing or giving it your best, or even when you wiped out, you got up and then you kept going. Like, that's what we praise. I don't care who wins. Nobody cares. Did you keep going when you wanted to quit? Did you have perseverance in the face of obstacles? Did you make an excuse or did you keep going forward even though there was so much resistance? Like, I just want, what kind of person are you? I want to praise the effort. I don't care who won. I don't care. But damn, I saw you fight your heart out and I'm crazy proud of you. Like, so even in that, like, is it about if you got the hit or is it about if you had the courage to step up to the plate and swing? Like what kind of person are you? Are you a person who takes a swing or a person who just sits and watches, wishes, and I wonder, are you a doer? Like, are you going to get up in your action side? This is like, you can read all the books about swinging and hitting the ball. You can watch the videos. You can pray on it. You can, wish it in your deepest desire, but until you pick up a bat and stand at the plate and swing, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And that's just the 4 different parts to it. But also, if you stand up there with no drive, no wish, no dream, no purpose, if you stand up there without a prayer, if you stand up there with no belief in yourself, if you stand up there and you have no game plan, no technique, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. You can swing all you want. You're just going to be hitting air. And so you got to have all your pieces. And this is where which part is the most important?
Well, and I think that's, doing mental performance, especially with athletics, is the physical has to be there. So like, I can be like, yeah, I wanted to play for the St. Louis Cardinals. I would play baseball, but if I don't have the physical skill to hit, a 95 mile an hour ball, or I don't have the physical skill to throw, from shortstop to first base at 90 bases, then all the mental stuff, it might get me through one day, but it's not going to get me through it.
Right.
But given that you work so much on the physical, the mental piece is where I think everything falls down, because once you have that physical skill, then it is about mental. I just was working with a cross country team, and we were talking about, two different kids. One fell down, got up, and started sprinting, and his race was over because when he fell, he panicked and he just took off sprinting. Another kid fell down, got up, took a couple breaths, and then just focused on like what was right in front of him. And he ended up finishing third or fourth. And it was like, that was exactly, you praise that. You praise both because they both got up, and then you help the other say, hey, your reaction, like that's what you can control going forward, but you got up and you tried your best, and now you know kind of what you need to do differently. But that's where the physical piece is not the issue. It's the mental piece. And I think that's the same when you're working in a office and something you get, something happens. Do you panic? Do you stop? Do you assess? Those type of things.
Yeah. I always love the stoicism to it. Like, it's not about what happens. It's how you choose to handle it. My dad actually challenged me. My dad is, he's my go-to, because he's probably the most cynical human I've ever known in my life. And so if he can crack my stuff, that means it works. It doesn't work, I need you to crack it. So I'll give him here's my philosophy, here's my theory, here's my program. And he'll go through and he'll try and just as cynically as you possibly can, try and poke holes. And if you can't do it, it's working. I'm like, if it gets past you, there's nobody beating this. So I run my theories by him. And if he can't crack it, he did the same thing. I want to play for the St. Louis Cardinals. He's like, I want to play in the NBA. He's like, I'm 60 years old. I want to play in the NBA. That's my dream, is NBA. That's what I want to do. And if everything's a choice, why can't I just be in the NBA? Why can't you just be on the Cardinals? Everything's a choice, right? Is everything a choice? I want that. I'm like, no. Why do you want to play in the NBA? What do you love to do? What's in there that's your thing? It's not, do I want a result? It's, what do I want to do? And that's a result of doing what I love. Well, if you love playing basketball and you love camaraderie, or you love teamwork, or you love the love of the game, you don't have to be in the NBA to do that. So what do you want? What do you choose to do? What do you enjoy doing most? It's not about a result. It's about, are you doing the thing that you actually love it for? If you love it enough, you end up with a result that's high level. But if you're like, Cardinals is the only win. Well, no, do you just love to play? Yeah. Do you love just being there with your people? Do you love the feeling of being able to get an out or hit a home run? Do you just love the feeling of doing this? That's just your activity and it feels good. This is a lot more to it. It's not about, did you choose to be in the NBA? Did you choose to do what you love?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the hardest thing at any age. I mean, it's super hard when you're young, but you're expected not to know. I think as you get older and you start, and I think I see it with chasing careers, right? Mm-hmm. And positions and things. And so, yeah, there's a level, I truly believe this, there's a level of kind of like a skill level or a financial level or things like that, where if you're not there, then there is going to be a hit on your happiness.
Interesting.
So basic needs, whatever those basic needs are, right? But sometimes then we strive for all of these things that really are things or accolades or things like that don't help our happiness or our peacefulness or anything like that, but we think they do. So
you're getting into some of my favorite stuff to do, right?
Okay.
I love this stuff. You're going to start seeing where I do mastery stuff with people. I think you're going to love it. Well, if we're trying to, aside from the comparison curse itself, which is already a four attack curse, because it's going to be very difficult to beat by itself. It's not just doubt, which people think it is. There's fear, there's bargaining, there's denial. There's a whole bunch of pieces in here that we got to face. So like it's a combination curse to begin with comparison. It's a very tough one. This attacks women very, very young, 11 years old, 12 years old. You're not as good as her. You're not pretty like her. You're not that. You're not this. It hits girls really young. With guys in teenage years, it's burden of performance. You don't have status. You don't have money. You don't have success. You don't have these things. And it's pushing in. You're in one of the first generations of women who have been pushed on burden of performance and burden of beauty. You have to do both. Good fucking luck. Like you have to compete with the big dogs, but you also have to be looking good doing it. You got to do it in heels. It's like, geez, how the hell? Like it's such an unrealistic setup right now. Like you see even the most successful women going like, I just want to be a good mom. Why do I have to compete with the wolves? It's like hard to do both. Yeah. And so that's a totally different thing, but let's get in on one of my favorite words. I did a whole webinar on this. I actually would debate Harvard professors on this one. If people are trying to find this happiness thing, I did the comparison. I wasn't at a level. I didn't have an achievement. I didn't do a thing. It's going to take a hit off my happiness. Well, first we have to figure out what the hell is it? Because if I'm trying to get it and I'm like, Callie, you keep mentioning happiness. I want it. What the heck is it? So I can do it. What is happiness? What is it? I want it. I'll do it.
Yeah. And I don't know even if happiness is the right word, because I think happiness is subjective. And, I think it's a feeling of contentment. That's kind of my take on it.
So now I got to learn a new word. I've got contentment. What is contentment so I can do it? I'm in. I want to do it. I'll do anything that you say. What is it? I want contentment then. If I want happiness, I need contentment. So what does contentment mean?
I think it's waking up every morning with a purpose.
Okay. So I have to wake up with a purpose. How do I find my purpose?
I see how this is going.
You can see this is where the rabbit hole starts getting real weird, real quick, because we're trying to figure out one subjective word that makes us feel a certain way. We use another subjective word to define it, which leads us to another really subjective, hard thing to solve. And they're like, I'll never have happiness. I'll never have it. Like, because I have to get contentment and then find my purpose. And how the hell do you find your purpose? Like it's a rabbit hole that gets like real deep quick. And so whenever I work with master level people, like, well, tell me what it is and how do I do it? You even see Arthur C. Brooks, who's a Harvard professor, where he's like, well, first off, I can explain happiness to you. First off, if you get into my class, which means get into Harvard. And then second, this class sells out in minutes because everybody wants happiness. So you have to be within the first people to get in the class. And then third, he breaks down a subjective word like happiness as in 3 parts. Well, get your notebook ready because it's satisfaction, enjoyment, and purpose. And I'm like, well, those are 3 more subjective words. So hold on a second. I have a subjective word to make me feel fulfilled and happy in my life. I have to get into Harvard, be the first ones in the class, and then learn 3 more subjective words, and then maybe I'll get it. Fuck. I know people who have not taken that class who are very happy, so there must be something else there.
Yeah.
I know people who have no definition who are happy as hell. So I don't think that's the answer.
I would say, I don't have a tattoo and I keep saying I want to get one. and I want to get like moment to moment. And like, I think, where, if I had to describe kind of contentment or happiness, it's staying in the moment. And
presence in the present. That's what we call it. Presence in the present.
Yeah. The more you can be present, the more you can look at, what's just staying right now. Now, obviously there's responsibilities, right? So
shit. I was hoping it was just presence. Damn it. Now I got responsibility. What do I do with that?
Yeah. I mean, there are people who went out on the mountain. You say you want mountains. So you can go look up on a mountain and be pretty happy. Like I actually met someone who, he was back, but he went he went up on a mountain basically and lived for like 45 days on water and just, but he had that. He didn't have anyone like he could do that. And most of us can't do that. And so how do you stay present as much as possible? How do you reel yourself back when you're getting too far ahead? So like in athletics, it's like, one pitch at a time, one inning at a time, one moment at a time, one step at a time sometimes. And so if I had to say what I think the key to happiness is probably staying in that moment and realizing like when that moment's negative, that it's not going to be that long. And I have to say that having kids, and I have a 16-year-old and twins that are 13, and and I had kids a little later. So learning like that they would go through a cycle, and it wasn't like, when they're newborn, they're not going to stay in that complete helpless stage where you have no idea what's going on, and even now as teenagers, they're, I know that these are stages. Sometimes they're long, sometimes they're short.
Sometimes
so
they're really,
that's
really
brought
nasty,
me my own kind of joy. I'm sorry.
Sometimes those stages are really nasty and they're not fun. Yeah. I got 3 teenage girls.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, I hate this phase so much. I know it's a phase, but damn it, it's not fun. This is not nice.
I have 2 teenage girls and a teenage boy. So the twins are boy girls. So,
oh, wow. Yeah. You know the game.
Yeah.
And even still, there are 2 different things. They're doing different stuff. You're like, oh my God. You didn't just watch your brother do this. You're going to do it. Okay. Go ahead.
And you see their friends and it's, there's just, but I think that, so when we talk about like, how do you define, I mean, happiness, you can't define it. It's subjective.
I got a definition for you.
Do you?
Yeah. This is why I would debate a Harvard professor. You think I'd go in without weapons? That's crazy.
I don't want to hear this. I'm excited.
All right. So I like the moment to the moment. It's a Lao Tzu quote. This is the anxiety is in the future. Depression is in the past, but peace is in the present. So that was, ancient Chinese proverbs. Right. So moment to moment or present to the present is definitely a powerful weapon, but you miss some pieces. You want to know what the real definition is that we use?
Yeah.
It's the blips in life that are found in nouns, sometimes verbs. Sounds silly, right? This can't be the damn definition of happiness. It's the blips in life that are found in nouns and verbs. I'll tell you what I mean. What's a blip? A blip is a very temporary by design thing. It is not meant to last forever. It is meant to come. It is meant to go. It is not forever. So it's going to happen and then it's going to be done. That's what a blip is. Life is how we measure time. So it's a temporary moment in our time that is found in nouns, people, places, things, sometimes actions. So it's going to be a temporary by design moment in your life that will be here and then it will go. That's going to come from the people in your life, the places you love to be, the things that you have, or the stuff you like to do. It's in the moment that you can even see it. So you're right with the moment by moment, but do you have awareness and gratitude to be able to see that you're in a moment that is not meant to last, which makes it fragile, beautiful, and never going to happen ever again? Do you see that because this will pass? If we're in a moment right now, you and I are in a blip. I get to hang out with Callie right now, but in 10 minutes, I got to jump on to another call. So this is a blip. We get this moment, but this phone call will end in this day, which is 6/28/23, will never, ever, ever happen again. The next conversation we have, we will be in different outfits. It'll be a different day and it'll be a different time. We get to have more conversations and blips together, but this blip will never happen again. We can revisit it by taking presence in the present, by going to the past and watch this video again. But we just reliving a moment that felt good. This is temporary and beautiful and fragile. And a lot of times people are missing the gratitude for that this is not meant to last. And so we'll look for the negative and we'll miss the beauty in the moment. And so you're not wrong with the moment to moment, but do you see the purpose of the moment, which makes it so it is beautiful?
So I need to do moment to moment and add a little blip.
Yeah. Add the blip. It's meant to be temporary. So people think happiness is supposed to be forever, but the good is not as good without the bad. And so understand that it's supposed to pass. And if you think you're supposed to always be happy, then you don't understand happiness is meant to be like, it's supposed to end. It's supposed to, that was good, but now it's time for bed. or that was good, but now we got to go home, or that was great, but all things come to an end. Everything is meant to come to an end. Everything from relationships to our life, to our careers, to our passions, that'll come and go. Our youth is wasted on the young. Like you said, they have all the energy, all the vibrance, and they can do all the stuff, but they have no wisdom. They have no idea what to do with it. And then you have wisdom and you're tired and I'm trying to keep up and I don't have the youth to it. Youth is wasted on the young. Here we are. If I only had this mind when I was 18, the powerhouse I would be. And it's the conundrum of life, but it too is temporary, and that temporariness is beautiful.
That's totally awesome, because I think, what is this is a great moment. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But two is, I think we spend a lot of time focused on people who have been unhappy and trying to help them find happy. And when you're unhappy, and I grew up pretty unhappy in a lot of ways, even though there's a lot of happiness, but the driving forces were more unhappy than happy. So I missed a lot, trying
the training was survival at that point. So you couldn't catch the blips because you were trying to make it through.
Yeah. But I think it's survival. So you learn how to do that. I think when you have more of those happy blips, or those and you don't realize that there are some blips that can knock you on your, on the ground,
mm-hmm.
then it's harder sometimes. So I think it's interesting to be able to talk with people about when you're used to being happy or having these satisfying moments more than not, that when something happens, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? I think we spend more time thinking about, I've got to get over this unhappy something,
It's every loss is a lesson. Every mistake is meant to teach you something. And so when you get knocked in the dirt, rock bottom is probably one of the most beautiful moments. These existential crisis moments is the most beautiful thing, where you're like, the way that I've been surviving is not thriving. I need to change something. There's a point where cognitive dissonance punches you in the stomach and you go, I know what I'm supposed to do, but we got to get rid of that. But we got to stop doing whatever's after that. We got to stop doing where I know that's right, but I'm not going to do it. No, or I know that I shouldn't be eating this, but I do anyways. Or I know I shouldn't, neglect myself, but I do anyways. Or I know I shouldn't work 17 hours a day and then expect a happy relationship with my husband or my kids, but I'm doing it anyways. We know the answer, but we got to start challenging these things. At some point, we kick our own asses, and you're supposed to be learning, but we get caught in shame. We get caught in guilt. We get caught in judgment, and we miss the lesson. We miss the healing. We're surrounded all the time with beauty, all the time with blips. They're everywhere. I love this coffee cup. It's a cup. It's a thing. But I love this thing. It makes me happy. When I get coffee, when it's full of coffee, it makes me happier. Oh, but now I got to go through the race to acceptance, and I got to go oh no, am I really out of coffee? Oh, if only I had a bigger cup. But I do love this cup, but maybe I just didn't do it right. But I just want more coffee because I love it. But I guess I'm out of coffee. What am I going to do? I guess I should get some more coffee then. I guess I'll go get more. I got to go through these grieving cycles, and people don't understand. We do it quickly. This is coffee. But what happens when it's death? What happens when it's identity? What happens when it's career? What happens when it's marriage? What happens, when it's something that's serious, and this is where we aren't able to see that you're surrounded by beauty, like your favorite coffee cup when you're sitting in the middle of despair.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by beauty.
I think that's very well said. And I think it points to high achievers too. If I had to look back on what's changed the most is that ability to look and say, hey, there's things there were really good things that came out of some really bad times.
Absolutely. Causality. That's a whole fun game to go down to. What was the reason that needed to happen?
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you don't grieve those moments, or even when you're in the middle of them, that you don't have permission to feel them or to feel down. I get asked all the time, like false positivity. And it's like, no, you know, there are times where things are bad.
Yeah. Gotta go through.
Yeah. And so it just doesn't mean that you have to stay there. You don't have to, but do you have to go through them? Do they have to be bad? Yeah, sometimes they do.
The Jocko Willink thing, when he talks about good and people try to associate, like you said, the positive, you know, look at it positively. Well, that can easily fall into Pollyannaism. And so you start going like, everything is awesome. And you're like, that's really not everything is awesome. Like, slow down a little bit. We can find good from the bad, but it's not everything is just good and we ignore the bad. It's just find the way to make it work. And so we don't go into denial to try to call denial acceptance. It's not the same, you know, but denial can try and create a protection system that I don't need to go through bargaining, anger, depression, because I can skip it and call it done. And it's clever labels where like my denial is called the right answer, which is acceptance. It's like, well, you actually have to go through all of it to get acceptance. It's like, no, I knew the answer is acceptance. So I just put it on without dealing with it. And you're like, very clever, very clever. I see what you've done. Let me know when the volcano explodes. It either turns into suppression or it turns into rage. You let me know which one comes out, because suppression or depression.
Well, or it turns into like something happening to you.
Sickness, like you make yourself sick. You can only suppress for so long before it turns into something will manifest. Some expression will happen. Something will come of it. And, you know, even yesterday I had a guy who I was trying to explain, which I said, challenge it. He's like, I'm diagnosed with a mental illness of bipolar disorder. And I was like, did you see the range of what bipolar disorder is? It's everything from like, I feel sad to you're an asshole. It's like everything falls under BPD. And I'm like, it's like everybody falls in this if you really look at it. You ever had a bad day? You got BPD then. It's like, no, that's a bad fucking day. Stop it. Like, no. How do we deal with shit? And so what he was doing is I broke his system down. I realized his grieving process was only dealing with, well, that happened, which is just denial and then bargaining. He's able to go through the fantasy and then apply reality. But then he wouldn't address anger and sadness. And so they would explode every 6 months because he would suppress the feelings and just go, well, is what it is. Well, is what it is. At some point, if you don't go through the emotions and you suppress, it explodes. And he goes, well, it's because I have a mental illness. I said, no, it's because you're not dealing with your shit. You're only halfway fixing the problem. It's kind of like me fixing the pipe, but it still leaks. And at some point, like the bucket's going to overfill. Like it's still leaking. We have to fix the whole thing. It can't just be half fixed. And he's like, I'm going to challenge it. I'm like, please do. Because everybody I know with anxiety, depression, or going through all these things, once we tear the roots out, it no longer grows into a monster.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, there are times when there's chemical imbalances and things like that.
It's super rare. I'm not saying never. It's less than 1% would actually have that imbalance versus I just don't know how to deal with life.
Yeah. And I think that's why, like to your point, you know, if you logically think your way through something, you're not going to necessarily, and I can speak from experience. I've logically thought my way through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I still do. And it's part of where, you know, I try to tell people like, it's not easy and it's not perfect. And, you know, the thing is that you just try to show up every day. You trying to stay in those, you know, presence and moments. And
you're going to see I just did a podcast on Saturday. We just posted it today with Miriam Belcher. She speaks on the intuition side, especially we work with women, all women. And so she works on women's side for feminine energy and trying to understand your intuition and what is your purpose. And she's like, women struggle with being a human doing and not being able to be a human being. Like, she's like, it's the hardest part because women are meant to be, not to do. And just like, that goes against my whole DNA. But if you really listen to her process, there's an actual like formula for happiness that's inside of there as a mother, as a wife, as a woman. There's a piece in there that it's not about achievement. It's about being able to be present and be able to connect. It's like, well, that's heart side. And I repressed that side, you know? And so you're in the same battle as me. As my heart side is the most repressed side. But to start tapping into what that is made it so I can connect in ways that I never knew. But that's where the inner child work and, your romantic side and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It's not in the mind side. Inner child stuff's not mind side. It's not body side and it's not spirit side. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about with inner child shit. I don't care. I'm not connecting. It's in the heart. And I found that little dude. I was like, oh shit, this is in the part that I had closed off. This little guy was sitting here for 30 years. The hopeless romantic, brokenhearted. I was like, we don't talk about the sadness. We don't do that. We don't have time. Convert it to anger, turn it into a workout. Now we got progress. Let's go.
That's why I got biceps.
Yeah, let's go. Let's break stuff. Let's pick up something heavy. I am progress. I am strong. I am man. Like, it's so funny. It's like, no, I'm missing an entire part of a healthy connection. I couldn't do it. So like, I'm with you where you're like, man, I'm mastery on this side. And I did the same thing. Mastery on logic, mastery on strategy. My step-by-step is correct. It is working across the board. Do the action this way. It's working across the board, but it doesn't address heart and it doesn't address spirit. It doesn't address soul. It's deeper. Yeah. So I feel like we got a lot more cool stuff that we could jump into. I got to jump in another call in a minute here. Let's plan for another conversation very soon. What do you think? What do you say?
Sure. It was very interesting to talk with you. So,
I mean, if you're like, this was cool, or if you're like, this guy's an idiot.
No, you're not an idiot at all. No, I just, I wasn't sure kind of what I know you wanted to connect and, so I wasn't really sure kind of what you do, like if you do podcasts or what you do.
I do a lot more. The podcast thing just became, I've been doing this I've been working with clients for years. So now it's just time to make it so people know what we're really doing because we're pulling people out of hell. We pull them out on a daily basis and we show them the way to get out so they can teach other people the way out of hell.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's a very different thing. We're not talking theories. We talk practice. And that's why I think you and I are in the same boat. We're like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's where I spend most of my time and, with both like my coaching clients and then the teams I work with. But I think you're very good at that, like being able to get people to open up. And I think your podcasts are good. So
thank you.
No, I enjoyed talking with you. So, I mean, I hope it was beneficial to everyone.
You seem lovely to know. So I'm looking forward to knowing more.
Click on the button and you can become the hero in your own story. It's time to start making the choices to change. And the evolution that you're going to do begins with choosing the next step. This is the way. And together, we're always stronger.